So we have looked at many different ways that risk is used. So how are we going to define risk? What is risk to us? Well, for our class, we will use the idea or definition that risk involves both a probability or likelihood of occurrence and also the impacts or consequences if the event does occur. So risk is related to what can happen in the future. This means that the theories behind risk assessment assume that we have some control over what can happen in the future, and we can analyze and manage risk in a rational way. And we'll get to an equation later, but for now, our definition of risk has three parts. So we are going to define risk by being the answer to these three questions. First of all, what can go wrong? So for this, we'll need to identify the possible hazardous event that may cause harm to some of our assets. The second question is, what is the likelihood of that happening? So this is getting into a probability or a frequency. It could be qualitative, but it's likely a more quantitative value. And the third and final question is, what are the consequences if it goes wrong, if the event occurs? So for this, we'll need to identify potential harm or adverse consequences and outcomes. Risk analysis is how we go about answering these questions and identifying risk. It's our tool that we will use. In our context, risk is associated with decisions that we'll need to make and the hazardous events that those decisions may lead to. Risk analysis involves understanding how hazardous events can happen and what the consequences might be. A little bit of background or history of risk analysis. It was born within the military and space applications. It's been used in engineering fields for many decades, especially when we talk about nuclear and military planning, when those are involved. Risk analysis can be used within almost all types of businesses, and especially where the consequences of accidents or hazardous events can be large, such as nuclear power plants, chemical and process industry, the oil and gas industry, transportation industry, and so on. But risk analysis is also a very helpful tool for sustainability planning.